Hello, we're back on the Field Coach Experts podcast, where we love to talk about ways to help your field support teams better support franchisees, help understand what's going on behind the scenes with franchisees, and anything else that we can do to help franchisees really move the needle and really putting a lot of emphasis on the why and the coaching strategies behind things. Today we're going to be talking about if you're not measuring it, you're guessing. And I've got Jen Brannon here with me. I mean, that we're co-hosting today, but I like to make it sound like I've got you. Like, Jen, I brought you on the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, Ange?
I'm good. I'm really excited to talk about this as much as I love talking about ways that we help franchisees specifically or help field coaches specifically. I think we need to stay a little bit more high level on this first and make sure that people understand what's going on and why people resist numbers and metrics. And so we'll be getting into scorecards and metrics and things like that. But first, I'm going to take a minute to give a shout out to Listen 360, our sponsor for this podcast and for our roundtables this month. As brands grow, it gets harder and harder to really know what's happening inside each location. You end up relying on secondhand stories instead of actual customer experience. And so Listen 360 creates a direct line of sight into what customers are feeling at the unit level while still empowering franchisees and field teams to take action locally. It's built specifically for franchising, which we love, with the kind of system-wide visibility that helps both corporate teams and operators stay connected to what matters most. So big thanks again to Listen 360 for supporting this conversation and for the work that they do to help brands truly stay connected to their customers. If you're looking for a better way to understand what's happening across your locations and actually act on it, they're definitely a partner worth checking out. Okay, Jen, Listen 360, it's about reviews and that sort of thing, but I feel like it does kind of segue nicely into metrics because you should be tracking that, right?
Yeah, you should. And can I give a shout out? When I was a franchisee, and this was, I don't even know how many years ago now, 8 or 9, I don't even know. I used Listen 360 as a franchisee. And our whole system did. And it really gave me very, very valuable information to know what my customers were thinking. So I just wanted to give my own little personal shout out.
Yeah, I think it really helps with that sort of that knowledge, like I mentioned, but the almost like compliance or brand standards, making sure that everybody's if they're getting good reviews, if they're not, we can get on top of it, and just making sure everybody's working the best interest of the brand. So, okay, love that. All right, so let's get into things. You and I have both been franchisees, and so we've both had our own personal experiences. I know for me, I definitely there were times where I just kind of was sailing along and didn't really focus on my metrics. So maybe those stories will come up as we go a little bit. So let's, when we stop and think about, people that are using, they're guessing, they're using their gut feel to make decisions. And it doesn't feel like guessing when you're busy and you're experienced and you're emotionally invested. But at scale, intuition turns into inconsistency, right? Like we were just kind of guessing. We don't really have any, it's not scalable. And so really measuring is about clarity, right? Not about control. So Jen, when we say if you're not measuring it, you're guessing, let's talk about what we actually mean by that, especially in franchising.
Well, as a franchisee looking back and what we hear when, with any work that we do with franchisees is a lot of people will equate their effort to progress or performance or results without actually looking at the numbers. And so they make a lot of assumptions. Well, I'm doing these things, it must be working. And so I really think feelings are what we are making decisions on a lot of times when we're not looking at our numbers, is our feelings and our assumptions that we are utilizing. And I have been proven wrong until I really became someone who loved my metrics and used them. I had a business coach who would always be like, okay, but is that true? How do you know that's true? And I would say, oh no, the phone's ringing, the marketing is working. And I think a lot of people are like that. And they are using those scenarios or anecdotes or feelings in order to really see what they think are trends or the results. Really, right? So I think when people are guessing at things, it really creates a different definition of what success is, because success is now based on our feelings, and therefore expectations, right? If we don't have expectations that are set from past historical data or something, then where are we there as far as measuring the reality of things? So I think when you do actually measure what you're doing, your performance, your activity, whether it's your marketing efforts, your own personal efforts, your sales activity, it actually does create a reality that then we can we can use that reality to properly measure our performance and our activity and projections and things like that. So.
Yeah, that, it's funny. That reminds me when you've helped me as I've modified in my main keynote where I have the 5 game changers. And I know one of them was when was about starting to focus on my metrics. And I remember you saying, you should word this differently. You should word it that understanding my metrics helps me make better business decisions that help me put more money in my pocket, which is what we all would probably like out of our businesses. And so there's something about when you measure, being able to make a smart business decision and not just like continued guessing. So yeah, let's chat about why though. Like why do people maybe not want to measure? I think I mean I'll throw a couple out right at the top of my head when I flash back to my early days as a franchisee. I know for me, for one thing, it felt so structured, like I liked that kind of excitement of not having to feel so structured, but we can, as we go, talk about this, but that structure actually is one of those things like certain boundaries can be almost freeing because then where to play within it and get more out of it. But in the moment, it felt that way. And then I think also because it felt so real, like it's sort of scary because it's like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like I can't hide anymore. So those are a couple of things for me. What about for you, or what have you seen why people prefer guessing and why they don't want to look at metrics?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's because it's real. And we can't hide behind it. We can't hide behind our feelings. Quite often we will skew what we want to do, or our performance, again, based on our thinking. And if we're not actually measuring it, then we're able to do that. And so it's almost like a safety blanket. And we may not have to see the reality and the truth, because we're making it all up in our heads sometime, or we're using our assumptions and sometimes optimism. You and I are both very optimistic people. And, optimism is great, but we always say hope is not a strategy. And I think optimists can use a lot of hope as their strategy, where really we have to understand our numbers and measure what we're doing in order to see if something is working or not, and then be able to plan and set goals and all of these things. So I think measurement is also very, very permanent, and we are afraid. I will say one of the things that I heard many times coaching franchisees, when I really drill down with them, is they're afraid of being judged, right? Like, I'm telling you my numbers.
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
I may present this great facade of I'm the top performer and I'm this or I'm that, but you lift the hood and you see maybe some of my numbers aren't that great, then you're going to judge me and think I'm not as good as I am. right?
Yeah, it's all about it's like the truth, right? All this like truth comes out. I just wanted to, I just was reflecting too as we're talking. Another thing that comes up when I talk about this in my keynote with the 5 game changers, one of them being about metrics, is that when I think about like why wasn't I originally tracking metrics? Because our home office team, my field support team was trying to get us to look at certain KPIs, and I was like I'm good, sales are fine. Like sales were
Mhm.
good. I was like the model's supposed to make us money, and at the time there were cash flow was good, right? And so like why bother? I'm good, and I was busy. I was busy. Like I don't have time.
Mhm.
What like I was not convinced. It's not that I just didn't think they had my best interest, but I'm like I don't think I need to do that. Like probably someone that's not doing well needs to do
Yeah.
that. And so I know you're laughing at me now, right? But when I did start to care is when we couldn't make payroll or almost couldn't
Right.
make payroll and we're struggling to pay our other bills and things. I was like, wait a minute. And I always, in my keynote, I always say, what are those KIP things again? I should be tracking. Wait, tell me about those. And so that's when we got really focused on it. I'll maybe come back to it later on how that changed. But that for me it was just like I wasn't bought in. We're
You weren't
busy.
bought in, you didn't understand the why, right?
Yeah.
Probably nobody had, they talked at you about KPIs, I'm
Yeah.
sure, but
Yeah.
nobody trained you on KPIs to understand the why, the
Like
importance
here's
of them,
what's going to happen.
and how understanding this number, what is it going to do for you, and what are the consequences when you don't, let's say, watch that number or put metrics to your actions or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So you were, and I lived like this for a long time until I got my business coach way back in the day. We're living in oblivion, being operators of our business and thinking, well, sales seem okay, or oh, we're hitting this amount of revenue, so
Oh,
all is
we're
well.
like in the top. We're in the top. There were times we were in the top,
Mhm.
maybe 20% for Western Canada with our revenue.
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
would I know we're good?
Yeah. But you don't understand that if you just understood some of these numbers and
Mhm.
actioned them, you could be even higher. You could put more money in your pocket. You could stop, you could manage your expenses better so you're more profitable. You could do some of these things. You could stop spending money over here because that marketing effort is not really working. Put more money over here and just
Get more out
continue
of
to
it.
level up. We didn't get it until we were
Yeah.
taught this stuff. So
Hmm.
I'm going to say, any franchisors that are listening, there's a massive action step in there. And maybe I'm getting ahead, but think about how are you teaching your franchisees about KPIs and the value and consequences
And not
of
in a way
using.
that you're talking at them, but
Yeah.
like that your coaches are actually using the art of coaching, as we call it, and using their emotional intelligence skills and all that to help franchisees understand it and why it matters and showing examples and showing what happens if you do this or that. But yeah, we believe in this a lot, and I think when franchisees don't get it, a lot of times we just see franchisor teams get frustrated, and it's like, well, wait, first of all, maybe look in the mirror and see how you're
Yeah,
doing
that's a
doing it.
big lesson. I know you've talked about in your keynote that you do with brands, and talking about this particular as a game changer. What do
Hmm.
you hear? Because I'm sure you asked the crowd, right?
Hmm.
Something about, are you watching your KPIs? And if not, why? What is that resistance that
Hmm.
you hear people saying that I'm not looking at it because?
Yeah, so sort of some of the things we've said, it's a big one is I'm so busy.
Yeah.
How can I actually stop and do this? Another one is I'm open to the idea, but I don't know what I should specifically look at. Like there's so many numbers that I could see on this dashboard that you're giving me, but I'm not clear. Another
Mhm.
one is, and this goes back to the franchisor, I believe, is that they think that it's a big brother looking down on them.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this corporate, oh, you just want this corporate number or this corporate thing so that you can use this information for yourself. And that's where
Mhm.
I think, oh my gosh, if franchisees only understood how valuable it is that they're in a franchise network where they can know what's normal and what should be expected. And of course, I always like to make sure they understand that every not only every different like industry or brand itself, but even within it, it depends on the stage the franchisee is at, what they should be really focused on. You know, if they're like a gym franchise, early on, it's like getting members, right? Number of new members signed, or might be even before that, it might be the leading indicator of call or initial the free consultation sessions or whatever. And so I think that again, it goes back to the franchisees understanding how this helps them make decisions that help them put more money in their pockets, and it's not just a corporate thing. So those are a few things I've seen.
And I think when they're resistant, and we hear this from coaches, like I just can't get my franchisees to care about their metrics, and we've already talked about it's probably because they don't understand the why, or we haven't trained them or whatever. And it's resistance is often self-protection, because you've said, I'm too busy. There are times when franchisees are too busy, which they shouldn't be, because this needs to be something that they must focus on as a good, prioritize as a good business owners. But if they're potentially maybe not managing their staff well, they're running the counter all of the time, they're working 80 hours a week already. I mean, there's other things that need to be done to get them out of working so much in their business. But they do it out of the resistance is often that self-protection, whether it's the fear, whether they're already, feeling overworked, the not having the buy-in, or, all these reasons. It's not because they're like, I don't want to because you want me to. Quite often it's not a defiance thing.
Yeah.
It's all these other things. And so imagine if we as coaches or as franchise systems, imagine if we're nipping that in the butt ahead of time. We're doing what we need to do in order to empower our franchisees to use their numbers and understand their numbers, so that they don't have to feel like they're in that self-protection.
What's going through my mind is also one of the biggest things that I think people need to understand is when it's and we're sort of hovering around this, but I don't think we're quite saying this. It's that when what's the KPI or leading indicator, what is the metric, what is this on my scorecard, or however we're looking at that, what I'm aiming for. And here's another problem, is if we don't understand how to fix it. And I think that's where the buy-in, I think you lose the buy-in. So for me, once I understood, for us, one of our really important metrics was our gross margin per sale, like gross margins. And throughout the day, we could go look on a dashboard and check where we're at. If our gross margins were really low, that meant it was retail, so it means that we're probably just selling things that are on the flyer, and we're really kind of not covering our costs. And so, okay, I don't want that. How do you fix that? Well, so then I just need to go work with my staff and remind them, hey, these, when somebody's buying this thing on the flyer, maybe suggest something that's not on the flyer that goes with it. Maybe that person actually doesn't care so much about price. They care more about quality and convenience, which is why they're here. And now that fixes our average sale. Oh, that's doable. I can do that, And that for me, I think that was a big thing. Like, what do I do with it? What do I do with the metrics? So again, all the teaching piece, right?
Yeah. For me, since we're sharing stories, one of the things that my business coach back in the day, really wanted me to understand, because I spent a lot of money. I had 7 territories, and I had a huge marketing budget. And I was a master guerrilla marketer, community marketer, if you will. I did that, and me myself, not my team as well, but I would be out. I'm out all day Friday, and I'm pounding pavement. I'm kissing babies and shaking hands and kissing babies.
That's always doing whatever you say, because if you get it backwards, it doesn't work.
Whatever it is. Yeah. But one of the things that and so she taught me how to every marketing channel. I need to track the number of leads. I need to track the revenue that each lead brought in, that we closed, and all these things. And so I made assumptions that, the lawn signs that we put out a ton of lawn signs. because it worked. The phone rang because of these lawn signs. And so that was my assumption because I was answering the phone. Oh, so good, so good. Great. Lawn signs, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars we spent. And then when she taught me how to even by territory, I realized because I had the numbers, okay, my lawn signs work in these 4 territories, great, but they don't work in these 3 territories at all. We are not converting these people, and I think it was the demographic that in those territories were attracted to the lawn sign. They thought it was going to be cheap. They would call, but they would never convert into a customer, and so that was an Oprah aha moment for me because I was like, here I am assuming that and continue to spend all this money. But now I'm not going to do that anymore in those 3 territories. I'm going to take that money. I'm going to spend it somewhere else and make sure it's working for me. And that was really, and I'll never forget that. That was so meaningful.
That's a really, I just want to emphasize how like that hit me hard because that's exactly what it's all about is uncovering those areas that are you're wasting money. I have other examples. I won't go down too much that path, but there were one real quick one was just percentage of labor. We were spending more on our labor than was the business model called for. And we're like, well, we're going to create more loyal staff and we're going to, and it just backfired because they just were acting more entitled and it didn't work because there were other components we would have had to do as well. But this home office team was trying to tell us like just blanket spending more on labor isn't going to fix the problem and you're wasting money. And we probably wasted that money for 6 months that we couldn't get back. When times were tight, it was like, oh, remember when we used to overpay our staff and we can't get that money back. So kind of like you with the spending in the wrong area, not knowing it, and then finally realizing, oh my gosh, that's pretty freeing.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. And I think, having a really strong coach that can tap into that, like my business coach did for me, and to show that relationship between what we're doing, whatever it might be, whether it's the marketing or this, and anchoring that data into the results, I think is really impactful. Because I think there's times when, and there's different scenarios that when it comes to coaching franchisees that we can really see when they're not tapping into their data, right? Like, let's just say if a franchisee is compliant and stagnant, and they're just stuck here. I think that is a good opportunity where we can really validate how maybe they're feeling, right? I'm going the long way around what I'm trying to say here. You're probably thinking, where are you going with this?
No, I think I know where you're going with this. Keep going.
Right, but it can really validate what's happening with them, and by anchoring that to the actual results, so that if we bring in the numbers, we can show them because of, maybe it's the lack of activity. You're not doing your 12 reach outs that you're supposed to do this week. You are not doing these things, and it's actually tangible, right? Yeah. And we can draw that line.
I think it goes back to it's sort of like empowering or clarifying when it's just knowing this, even almost like the science behind something. Like if somebody says to you, you should drink more smoothies, and then you just go drink smoothies that are really made of like ice cream and chocolate chips. But you don't understand that really they should be made of probably something like greens or proteins or like avocado or whatever you put in your smoothie. That's why it's not working. So it's having like understanding, this made this happen, and when we don't know, it can be it's how I love the line, as you know, a confused mind says no. So if we're not clear, we're less likely to take action. We're less likely to do the things we need to do. So I think that's kind of where we're going with that.
Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking of is coaches. we hear a lot, and people will come and take some of our courses or have in the past on how do you coach KPIs.
Yeah.
And we make a lot of assumptions that, oh, all brands are coaching to KPIs. Of course they are. And that's not the reality of it. And
Yeah.
so we hear from brands that, well, our franchisees aren't coming to coaching calls. We're coaching is, we're not getting an ROI on coaching. And one of my first questions is going to be, how well are you using KPIs? Whether they're financial or just data based, how much are you using them? Because I think what happens is coaches either get stuck in the operations or they think they're being supportive and bringing value, but if you're not you've got to do those things, but if you're not also actually looking and using metrics, then sometimes the support that you're getting from your coach isn't as that you're not maybe seeing it as valuable as it
Totally.
should,
Well,
right?
I
And
mean,
so coaching is nice, but it's maybe ineffective.
well, look how valuable it was for you with that lawn sign
Yeah.
story. Like
Right.
that literally saved you money or
Yeah.
helped you get better ROI out of your investment for how you were trying to drive business. So
Yeah.
that's side note. If anybody's listening and wondering how they can help their coaches have more credibility, it's how, if they can go find these things within the KPIs and numbers and metrics and just try to figure out where money's being wasted or anything like that, you'll win over a franchisee pretty fast when you
Yeah.
start showing them that you can save them money. So actually that kind of segues into a conversation about like leadership, like how measuring things changes leadership conversations inside of a franchise system. Um, I don't know if you have thought on that or if you want me to jump in on. I'm just sort of thinking about that as we go.
So when you mean from the brand's leadership and using, sorry, clarify that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I'm kind of thinking both the brand and not the franchisee level, but yeah, starting with the brand, I think like if we can measure things and know different locations are doing, we have these metrics and
Oh,
benchmarks and things. Let's start there. Like what happens to the credibility of the leadership team, for example, probably goes up because they can speak from the truth instead of just kind of guessing, right? So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk one thing about franchisees, but for franchisors, we because it's reality, and so we need to understand the KPIs for each of our locations. We need to be having benchmarks. What is the average? Where are we at? What is the average? Let's just say lead to client conversion rate from our top performers, because us those that aren't top performers, like I want to be a top performer, but I don't know how to get there. Does it just mean revenue? I just have to get to this amount of revenue. Well, that's great. The revenue tells you where their the end is, but how do I get there? Well, it's doing things like hitting the benchmarks for the conversion rates or the average ticket or whatever it might be. So I think that is it when it comes to metrics for franchisors, knowing all of your brand's metrics, having benchmarks set, publicizing. I'm a big fan of sharing some of those key metrics with, our top 10
Yeah.
franchisees or top 20, or sometimes people do it the whole system.
Yeah, we had the whole
Revenue
system.
and then their top 3 KPIs where they're measuring in on. I love that because it's also showing how you are leading this franchise system with KPIs at the forefront. Not everything's not just about the KPIs, but if we're lacking transparency and reality with if we don't have numbers to back up what we're doing, we're saying.
It's an important reminder for franchisors to prioritize making sure you do have some sound benchmarks and metrics. Even if you're sitting here listening and going, "Oh my gosh, we're so behind on that." Like get going with what are the most important kind of, the top 5 to 10 things and metrics and get a general benchmark at least so that your franchise. I've often seen franchisees say we need more benchmarks. Sometimes the franchisees are even asking for it. So
Yeah.
it's a good reminder to check in where you're at with that.
Yeah, we want to reduce our thoughts and our opinions and our feelings when it comes to a lot of things and back it up with actual data. It'll be a lot more impactful.
Yeah. Before we're getting kind of closer to the end here, one thing I wanted to quickly touch on is lead indicators versus leg indicators.
Okay.
Um, and I know you're going to be recording an episode with Brecken on our team and going deeper into scorecards, and I think maybe getting more into the how of all of this. Like we're
Yes.
kind of talking about sort of higher level and some stories here about what we've gone through and seen. So if people are curious, keep an eye out for that episode, or maybe if it's already dropped, depending when you listen to this one. But yeah, how do you explain to somebody why it's so important to look at both?
So
Actually,
just to,
let's
yeah,
clarify what they are.
yes,
Leading
yes.
indicator and then
So lagging is the thing that I think we're all more familiar with, or I don't want to necessarily say comfortable with, but we typically do. How did my last month go? And let's look at how, oh, this was my conversion rate, this was my revenue, this was my client count, or whatever it might be. We closed out the month or closed out the quarter. We're able to see it as it happened already. Those are lagging indicators. There's nothing we can do about them from the past because it's already happened, right? Leading indicators are things that we want to be looking at that we can actually action and do something about. So when the podcast that I'll be doing with, or I have already done with Brecken, and should be, I think it's called Scorecards That Don't Suck.
I love it.
The title, right? We really dig deep into this because we're about action. It's one thing to have goals, but you also you also have to know how you're trending toward your goals. Mm-hmm. So and I use this example that if I've got a goal for this month of in order to hit my revenue target, I need 50 leads because I've reverse engineered and I know that then, I've got a 60% conversion rate and most of my clients' average sale is 3,500, whatever it might be. I know that reverse engineering, but it all starts with those 50 leads.
Yeah.
That is going to be my leading indicator in how am I trending toward those 50 leads. So after my first week, am I on track? Maybe I need to get 12 or whatever it is. And then the next week, okay, am I still on track toward my 50 leads? That weekly number is my leading indicator. It's telling me how I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And if I get into that second week, for me personally, thinking back into when I did this, and it was like, I am not trending toward my goal. Again, I'm not just going to cross my fingers and hope I make it in my last 2 weeks. I'm going to do something about it. Okay, yeah. What does that mean? I'm going to put another $500 in my pay-per-click campaign. I'm going to go out and I'm going to put out 500 more signs. I'm going to do another mail drop this Friday. Like whatever, it means I can action them. If it's a conversion rate, okay, so-and-so needs more training and I'm going to do that training tomorrow because they're not hitting their conversion rate that we need them to be. So I'm going to action it. And that's really the difference is lagging it's already happened. Leading is something that we can do and action to make a difference on.
Mm-hmm. And then I would even say there's like leading indicators before the leading indicators, or just activities, we often call it. Like what are the activities? Yeah. And you just talked about them, like the activity might be going and putting up more lawn signs, but what is the weekly cadence of those activities and things? So I think that a lot of franchisors aren't really that clear on what are the activities that will get you those leading indicators that are going to go on your scorecard, that are going to help you hit your KPIs and so on. So
I think that's a huge one, Ange. You really nailed that one because we most don't do that. They don't break it down into almost like the leading before the leading. In it's your weekly activities. When I was talking about what I'm going to do, it's over and above what my leading before leading are, right? Like my activity that I'm already doing. I got to do something different. But having those core activity-based KPIs, again, whether it's introducing myself to 10 new business owners, whether it's doing an event every week, whatever those are.
A combination of those, but whatever the combination is. Yeah. I actually remember, because, we talk about your time as a franchisee, which was, the most recent was Tutor Doctor. And I remember when I first started to get to know Tutor Doctor a little bit, and there was a really cool ramp up scorecard of like how many how many lawn signs to do, how many schools to go talk to, like all those things, and it was like, and I mean, you even had, actually, I just remembered, and this is a really cool tip for people. I remember something about points, that you got, like, you had to hit certain amount of points,
Yeah.
and the activities got you points, right? Like,
Yes,
and
this
from a
I
competition standpoint within the brand amongst
yeah.
franchisees, you could get points for the activities because they were just trying to get you guys to get
Yeah.
out there and do your activities.
Yeah, it was a really good thing because it gave people perspective because there's so many things that we can do to market our business and create brand awareness. It's like, what do I do first? How do I do it? And if we've got a playbook for them, great, but it's in a playbook form. This was really good. They called it the Star 250 report. And every month you needed to get 250 points. And on this, it was just a one pager. It had all of the different types of activities that you could do, and it
Hmm.
gave you a point value for them. And
Love it.
so our job was just however you wanted to do it, which is good because it put it in my hands. I didn't have
Yeah.
to do what they told me to do. I could choose the different activities, and I just had to get to 250. And I knew if I got to 250, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to make the phone ring, basically
Hmm.
back then, right? And it was really really good and well done. And then we as new franchisees, we sent it in, and our coach would look at it, and if you didn't hit the 250, not that they were being like too much oversight, it was just like,
Good for your
why,
sake.
what happened, right? Let's
Yeah.
work this through so that we can take out any obstacles to make sure you always are hitting that, because you want to reach your goals,
Yeah, you want to
right?
make
And
more money, or you want to have more freedom,
exactly.
or you want
Yeah.
to go on this vacation, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a banger. I think
Yeah. That's a good, I'm glad
that
you brought
one.
that up. I forgot that.
Yeah, so hopefully people stuck it out this long and got to that point, because that's a really good one. Okay, well, I think we can work towards wrapping up here. Are you ready for that? Is
I
there
think
anything else you
so.
want to add into things?
No, no, I think listen to the other, if this topic interests you, listen to our other topics, our other podcasts around this, because we get a lot more granular with the how
Hmm.
to these things.
Yeah, and don't forget to check out Listen 360, everybody, because
Mhm.
we had talked about them earlier and they're pretty awesome. So this is the, I guess, kind of like the Go Be Awesome challenge, Go Be Awesome
Mhm.
challenge. So this means if somebody's listening to this now, something they can go do, and that might be like talking to franchisees or your field teams or whatever it is. So I'll frame it this way, and then you can take it how you want. But if they understood one thing differently about measurement, what would you want it to be that they understood? So what should somebody go make sure their franchisees understand that
I
they're not
think
understanding?
I think, like I said at the top, like the why behind it. What is it? We're all about what's in it for me. What is it? What is it going to do for you? And then what are the consequences of not using your metrics? I think if we can just frame it that way, and then that being the first step, and then doing the training and keeping it in the coaching conversations to get
Hmm.
the ownership and buy-in of the franchisees, right?
I
If
like
you
that.
don't, just another tip we've seen with brands, if you have not done that, if you have no KPI training in your onboarding program or anything, run a boot camp. Run a 6-week boot camp where you are teaching these franchisees about whoever wants to come, and teaching them the basics, and then creating them a scorecard and getting them into the habit of this so that they can see it for themselves.
I wonder if we know anybody that might be that does that. Well, maybe they should reach out to us and we can maybe help with that. Okay, that's good. And I think if I were just going to add on one more layer to it, so yeah, so you said making sure they understand why. I also think a really good a next level, if you can go and create something, or even if you're just sort of sketching this on a whiteboard with a franchisee, but showing them what we mean, like that example that you gave about the lawn signs, or if we're spending extra money in an area, and then showing them, what if we put that money here and look what might potentially happen. Like, find a use case where you can
Yeah.
show And for me, with the gross margin, it would have been like if we kept going along at 27% margin, we wouldn't have been able to cover our costs. If they could have showed me that very specifically, or maybe they didn't, I just wasn't listening. But
Yeah. No,
but
I
very
love that.
clear, paint the picture. Once you
Yes.
paint that, that's the confused mind says no. Paint the picture so they're not confused. So I would like
I
to see
love that.
that. So.
Yep.
Well, that's, all my time hanging out with the field support teams that are weekly roundtable. I learn a lot and have a lot of fun. So, okay, well, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Go be awesome.